good. I'll call to order regular council meeting number 1550 for November 16th. And in honor of the Lo-Watuo, the village of Pemberton acknowledges that we are meeting within the unceded territory of the Litwat Nation. In attendance in person today, we have Councillor Antonelli, Councillor Craddock, and Councillor Zant. Attending electronically, we have Councillor Noble. And for those members of the public in attendance, please note that this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded. A recording of the meeting will be available on the village's website following the meeting. Any amendments to the agenda?
Just gonna
There you
fix that, yeah.
Perfect.
So,
Seeing none, can somebody move the agenda as presented, please? Councillor Zan, second by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. Rise with the report. We don't have any. Adoption of minutes from regular council meeting 1549 from Tuesday, November 2nd, moved by Councillor Antonelli, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising from the previous regular council meeting? Seeing none, business arising from our last committee of the whole. Recommendation from committee of the whole, meeting number 220 held on November 2nd. That staff be directed to continue processing the application by CATA Project Management for Phase 2B on behalf of Sunstone Ridge Developments for Development Permit 91, which includes a proposed variance to the Village of Pemberton zoning bylaw maximum retaining wall height. Committee minutes and delegations, we have none, so we're on to 9.
did we get a mover in a second?
Oh, sorry, my bad. Can I get a mover for that recommendation from committee of the whole? Councillor Antonelli, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be voting against this. I was hoping that we would continue with the existing bylaw 1.2 meters rather than now raising it to 2.4 for a variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? No question, any opposed? Councillor Craddock, Councillor Zand, I think.
Sorry, were you opposed? Okay.
Motion carries.
And would both of you like that noted?
Yes. I'm speaking for myself, not for both.
So that takes us to 9A, the Office of the CAO verbal report.
I don't actually have a verbal report this morning, but I will, did with that go into the strategic priorities and third quarter update. Okay, a lot of what I have identified on the strategic priorities listing, which I'll touch on after. Council, or sorry, the rest of staff are coming in to do their quarterly reports, so I won't go into too much detail on some of these because I'll let the managers deal with those respectively when they present. So what we have here is I've identified several staff members within the Office of the CAO who undertake obviously different roles and updated on what they have been undertaking in the last quarter. I would say the priority is still focused heavily on COVID-19, understanding what different public health orders are coming down the pipe, how the village is going to be managing those. We still hold weekly meetings. We've just now combined them with our department meetings. We sort of touch on any EOC related items as they pertain weekly. As far as emergency management, our program coordinator has undertaken a transition. Some of you may have seen that we've changed sort of the carrier of our Pemberton Alert, and that transition went quite well. It's much easier from an administrative end to make changes. So that went over smoothly. Also, what we do every fall is we will often send out a newsletter to all the stratas, and we actually put it online as well, about things people can do to mitigate any flooding or high water, backwatering that we see by cleaning out their catch basins and other areas, just making sure that the water can drain. So that was done again this year. And as usual, we're often working with our partners in the Sea to Sky collaboratively to undertake just sort of discussions with one another, but also there was a kickoff project for the Pemberton Valley and Squamish floodplain evacuation planning exercise. So that will be more updates will be coming on that. Communications and grant coordinator, obviously, again, still part of the EOC. Annual reports is actually a very large project that we managed to finalize during that quarter, which I think was very valuable, the effort that was put into that. A couple of water conservation campaigns on doing their part, grant fundings. And we've actually updated some of our style guides and some branding for the recreation department, as we didn't have that done during the transition. We didn't have something specific, and recreation is very unique. Obviously, we need to have a little bit of a different branding for recreation than for the rest of the organization. Project and research coordinator. Unfortunately, this position is still vacant and has been since August 23rd. This role was a large support, I would say, for myself to help me with some of the projects that are undergoing, such as the Pemberton Waste Transfer Station subdivision, and also the economic development strategy. The previous individual did get it into a somewhat final state. I just haven't had an opportunity to go back and review that. And also as the liaison for BC Transit, the Regional Economic Development Collaborative, Tourism Pemberton, Chamber of Commerce, and Destination BC, Sea to Sky Committee. And actually right before her departure, the Nukwantwal Organizing Committee sort of reinvigorated once again, and the SLRD applied for funding to hold a gathering in March, and they were successful for that. So we're starting on planning for that particular event, which will be very exciting after a couple of years of not being able to have conversations and working together. So does anyone have any questions on those items? No?
Maybe just, sorry, Mary, just an update, how are we doing on HR as far as the filling that position?
That position, I have made an offer. I just have to double check my emails to see if it's confirmed.
Thank you very much.
So hopefully I will have more information to share soon.
Good, thanks.
Nikki, where does Plan Y sitting with staff?
That's just with under Pemberton Recreation.
It's
sort of
still
falls under
recreation. I wasn't sure if
Yeah.
it came in.
No,
Okay, so that's currently been redistributed to new staff or?
yeah, well, we currently have staff, it was mostly at the youth center. A lot of staff hasn't changed with respect to the youth center.
Oh, okay.
I know that during the initial peak phases of COVID, we were trying to push some mental health resources for youth, just in dealing with what we can do to help get resources for yourself going through the pandemic, because obviously I think it had a toll on our youth as well. I'm not sure how much is being posted, but I'm happy to follow up to see what we can do to continue to update that and make it a.
Just to make sure it's not stale. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna touch on some of the strategic priorities. Status sheet starts on page 18 of the agenda. Affordable housing implementation consultation. So we had gone through and developed some plans. We've done a final survey and we have yet to analyze those to complete the process. Economic development strategy, I did identify it as in its relatively final stages. I just need to put some attention to that, and I'll bring that to council for your review. Municipal facilities, I'm very close to issuing. This is for a design for a municipal hall and fire hall to get that launched so that we can have some funds probably, or we can allocate funds if need be as for a facility through the next budget cycle. But we already have budget for the design. Daycare expansion, unfortunately, we were advised on the 27th of October that contrary to popular belief, I guess, or information we've been advised, is that we actually do need to apply for a third time for funding. And that due date is today. So the application is nearly complete. We were working on that yesterday and we have to get it in by 4 o'clock today. So fingers crossed that we will be successful on this. A couple of things that they had, the application expanded on the requirement for the daycare to detail a little bit more on accommodations of, do they have an ability to support young families or Indigenous families, or how are their supports for children who may need a little bit more attention. It's just, so we had to expand on those particular items as well. They wanted to see an increase in or a fuller review on the costs. So we've undertaken that. The good news is that through discussions with the new manager of the daycare, is that we were able to do a small little redesign that incorporated the NAP or gross motor skills room.
The what, sorry?
The NAP room / gross motor skills room, to put it closer to one of the classrooms, which has washrooms attached to it. So we were actually add a few more spaces, which has even as a result of the cost increase, has reduced slightly the cost per square foot, or cost per childcare space. So we're trying to reimagine a few things. It's not significant, but it was around the 60,000 mark. I think it's down to like 54,000, something like that. So it's something.
Even with increased costs, since we put that application in with 60,000,
Yep.
costs have gone up, and we're still,
About almost 18% they've gone up.
we're able to still come in under 60,000.
So
We're gonna insulate it.
yeah, still have all the things it needs. But that was good. We were quite excited that we were able to show some kind of movement in one direction or not. As far as the climate action plan, so this was sort of on hold until our OCP planner became full-time, took the role, and that has happened. And so we're expecting in the December meeting, we will have a presentation to the committee of the whole.
Sorry, back to the daycare before, just so we don't lose. And if there's any questions as Nikki goes, please put up your hands. So when the new application goes in today, you mentioned you got it down below 60,000. Is there, again, the whole province started this process 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and costs were a lot lower. Are they acknowledging? The 40,000 was tough to hit 3 years ago. Now it's even tougher for all of us, not just us. So is there some acknowledgement from the provincial side there, or we are not provincial?
They've asked us to provide the rationale for why we may be in excess of that $40,000 of childcare space. And we had already had those discussions, so we had the rationale. So we've made sure that we've included it and expanded upon it somewhat.
I think that's pretty significant.
Yeah, I agree. And they know, we've had a couple of minister meetings and we've been very clear, and we've actually had communication with ministry staff, provided that information as to why those rates are higher than 40,000 for childcare space. And hopefully they're time to charm, and we will get funding.
District of Squamish is having the same conversation today because we both got that letter that's in the package from Minister Chen. So when we talked about this at our last meeting, we resolved to correspond. So I don't know if we want to connect with Squamish to potentially do something joint again, or if we just want to do our own thing, but they're having the same conversation today.
Okay.
Thanks.
Asset management, we have been advised that our application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is currently under review. We were, I think, number 500 of, I'm not sure how many, but they kept every month giving us a listing of where we fell into the review. They did ask us for a few bits of information to help support our application. Once they did the review process, we provided that back the same week. So we're still just waiting to hear if we're going to be successful. Once we determine if we're successful on this or not, we'll be able to determine when we move forward. If we're not successful, we had allocated gas tax funds as a placeholder to carry on with the works. So this, if we're successful or not, we are able to proceed with this in 2022.
And we'll hopefully know before budget time.
Yeah, and I would think that at the same time, we would still hold the gas tax funds as we could use those in their place, so we could carry on with the project. So it would just be a bit of a backstop so that we can go ahead. OCP update. This was similarly, we are waiting for our OCP planner to begin full time, and that is now taking place. So we'll be starting sort of as a smaller bit by bit. So we have the affordable housing action plan is nearly complete. So that final review, climate action plans coming forward. And then we'll be bringing forward other pieces as we go through. We expect, I'll let Development Services touch on this a little bit more in their report, but we are expecting sort of a timeline, a general timeline of when we can expect and backtracking all of that work to be done. That will be presented at an upcoming meeting. Boundary extension. So this, just as a little bit of information, is a couple of small properties that are just on the outside jurisdiction of the Village of Permanent that want to come in. So there was once lot that was in the benchlands that wasn't, I don't know if it was an omission or what happened. That's currently left over in the SLRD. So we're waiting for that land to complete its transaction before we proceeded with the other smaller lots. So we expect that to come forward in 2022 now that that land has transferred. Single-use plastic bag bylaw. So this will be incorporated into the climate action plan as a potential deliverable, but we'll have more on that in December. And improved monitoring floods and landslides. So one thing I would say that obviously there's ongoing monitoring. We have universities where I think we're getting an update in December. Do we have someone coming for a delegation?
Not that I'm aware of at this point.
I thought we got. Anyway, we will be having someone come in to just talk about some of the works that have happened. But really for us, this will be from a risk management perspective as far as planning, and that's another item, sort of a hazard risk assessment. It will be incorporated into our OCP. So we just need to establish certain lands, mostly around the airport. We had the Mount Currie rock slide assessment, and it identified, council should consider future development in areas such as this. So we'll be bringing forward some information through the OCP process. We're expecting probably spring to have a conversation about that. Regional transit. So these are some advocacy and partnership priorities that were on the strategic plan. And this one has reinvigorated. We talked about it at the last meeting. We had a bit of an update on that. So this week we had a minister meeting on Thursday, and I met with BC Transit last week. So there is some conversations happening. We did we'll see where we go with that. Second entrance to town. There has not been a lot going on as far as that. That will be development driven, and we'll probably take more smaller routes rather than one larger route to accommodate that. Other than that, I would say the majority of those larger projects have been incorporated as priorities into each of the departments. What I'll do is I'll just touch on briefly some of the ones that haven't been identified in each department. So the Office of the CAO, IAP2 implementation. We have been using this template, which is sort of a communication template to determine whether or not we're informing, we're collaborating, what type of engagement that we're having with the public. One thing that we haven't done that I know other communities have is incorporated it into our reports to council. We haven't gotten to that point yet. So that's why it remains on here, because that bit of that component isn't done. And we'll have to incorporate that into 2022 work plan. Other than that, so for the Office of the CAO, the remaining priorities were from the council priority sheet that I already discussed. So regional evacuation plan, I'm talking about emergency at this point. So we are working on partnership with the Squamish-Silhouette Regional District and the District of Squamish to test evacuation routes and to do a functional exercise. So that will be coming forward. Staff will be undertaking those works. Emergency management plan update. This was scheduled on a number of occasions, but we've just finished our, I guess that was in the spring. In April, we did a tabletop exercise. We'd also like to have a larger scale one. The other one focused mostly on staff. And we would like to have that completed in 2022. A couple of other projects that are being worked on in partnership with JIBC. We've been asked to be a test pilot on the community disaster resilience planning. And right now we're going to be testing out their dashboard and helping it to become something that can be distributed for other communities to identify infrastructure areas, hazard areas, just as an overall general mapping for emergency management. That should be finished by the end of this year or into early next year. And ESS, Emergency Support Services Modernization. So we're working with Red Cross, and UBCM also has a program where you can get on a tablet an app. So it makes registration for emergency events for ESS much more streamlined. We're also having a conversation regionally about Red Cross doing a regional support. Right now, all of the municipalities have an individual agreement, and the regional district does not. So we're looking to incorporate that into a regional approach. Corporate community forest. We are at the part right now that we have done the first harvest, and the next steps are to be working on governance matters in the early new year in January, with an aim to secure the new board members in the spring, summer of 2022. A couple of these other fees and charges that has been completed, that has been on the list for a number of years. So I think that's a huge accomplishment to have that completed. So well done. Mobile vendor pilot program, we initiated that as a 2-year pilot. There was only one business license available, so we'll have to see if that is able to continue in 2022. Business license amendment for the mobile food vendor that was brought forward for second and third readings and was rescinded to not allow any additional licenses. All licenses had to be incorporated into the current bylaw. And so we identified a listing of several other bylaws that were brought forward and adopted in the third quarter. On to operations, the soccer field. Number 2, I did identify this at our last meeting in my verbal report, just waiting for the lights to finish. A right-of-way agreement with BC Hydro so that we can hook them up. And the mountain bike skills park, this construction has somewhat begun at this point, but most of the work will happen and take place in the spring, summer of 2022 with completion in the summer. Pemberton Farm Road East upgrade, we did apply for 2 grants. We were not successful in the Healthy Communities grant. We're still awaiting notice on the active transportation. If we do not hear a successful grant application, if we don't receive that from active transportation, we'll be bringing back alternative funding sources for 2022 in the budget so that we can accomplish this upgrade.
Okay, sorry, can you remind us where we're at with the amenities building RFP?
That is still on the list to review. Water generator, you may have all seen it as you come in. We have the final commissioning still pending. There's another piece of infrastructure we're waiting for, just the fuel tank, I believe. Mr. Chima can update more. And water treatment investigation, we're obviously investigating, and I will let him update you a little bit more on that as well, which is very exciting. Not a lot different in finance, other than I guess I could put on here, but we now have our new manager of finance with us, and we're very excited to have Mr. Sikora here, and I'm sure we will see him at the next meeting when he'll be presenting the third quarter financial statements. Not much on development more to update other than development procedures bylaw that was completed and can be removed, and the DCC bylaw at this point we are underway. We've identified the infrastructure projects, or a large list. We just need to refine it. The other thing that you will see is we'll be bringing forward a separate bylaw for exemptions, either end of this year or beginning of next year, which will allow for exemptions for affordable housing, not just anything, but for project specific that are allowed under legislation. So we will see that coming forward soon. Recreation, again, this department has been quite significantly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. I think staff have done an excellent job navigating all the different changes and allowing new measures and people can come back into the facility, to scaling things back to mask wearing. Also basketball court construction. This will be incorporated in the 2022 work plan. The first thing that we want to make sure that we're doing, which has been identified on staff's list, is looking at lot 8, which is the lot that the basketball court will go on. Looking at an overall plan and project, like just planning that whole area and bringing that back to council so that we have the correct location for the basketball court, and looking at other possibilities for that piece of property. A couple, last one is fire, municipal facilities. Talked about Meadows Fire Department. So the fire chief and department members have been working to legitimize the Meadows Fire Department to a certified exterior attack. And we have a meeting at the end of this month with the SLRD. We need to establish some regular funding, and we will bring back more information as we have it on this one. Training, this is another large one, which goes to show just the assistance with the Meadows, obviously providing fire service to the SLRD and Lilwat, but also the training that members of the Pembroke Fire Rescue have been doing. They just underwent first responder training, which will then allow Lilwat to become more self-sufficient, to secure funding, to get vehicles, to get eventually a haul, and all of that ties in together. As far as the started with the agreement and now into the training. So, and with that, that is the end of our report.
Thank you so much. Any questions? That's good. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just to follow up on the mayor's question about the amenity building out at the recreation site. What is the time frame for the funding before it runs out, or is it?
I think it's 2024.
Okay, but the plan is to get the RFP out so that
This
it's built
fall.
next year.
That is the
Okay.
plan.
And it'll be hopefully ready for September when soccer gets started.
It depends. I would hope so. The area has already been, I believe, it's been preloaded. So we'll just need to have the parking lot and all of that. I think we'll obviously want to get the bike skills park in. We're going to need some route. As you all know, it's kind of at the back of that area. So we're going to need somewhere to travel back and forth. So whether or not we can find a little bit of a shuffle so that we can still get the equipment back and then proceed with the amenity building.
Thank you. And the second question I've got, as I've asked before with the municipal facilities, when is council going to be involved in anything to do with design, location, or size?
Well, right now we need to get a consultant to come in, and we need to identify some areas, and we'll bring back some options. And then once we go ahead to award that, then we'll make some criteria about what exactly we need as far as size. But we're looking for not just one option. We're looking for probably 3 different options to consider, so that we can, whether we need a standalone, is it together, is there a affordable housing element to some of that? So we just need to engage with the successful candidate before we figure out anything more specific than that.
And I guess that's why, if I could follow up on that, I guess that's why I'm asking, at what point does council become involved?
Once we have a consultant who we can then give the marching orders to go and bring the information.
So that'll be done before the RFP goes out?
No, the RFP will go first so that we can get a candidate to come in, and then we can determine what the scope is after that.
Okay, don't quite follow that, because if we go out and select the candidate who may have their own land that wants to build on their own land, and it comes to council and council says that's not where
So that's not, we're actually getting someone in to do a design, not to do a build,
just the design.
just the design. And then-
That's what I've had problem understanding.
Okay, no, it's only ever been for the design. So we just want to see what are some options, what are some costs for the options. And then we would be able to go out and see if somebody is interested to sign in, partner, or build it for us, or whatever that happens to be.
And do you expect, when would that come to council after the RFP goes up?
I would say we probably want to have some conversations with the consultant, and probably have the consultant come in and get some feedback.
At what time frame?
It depends when the RFP goes out.
Okay, thank you.
And I mean, it must be hard when we're talking about the media hub of, with all the changes and remote working now, and, it's really changed parameters, I would imagine a bit, no?
There's not a lot of people working remotely.
No,
In fact, There is no one who's exclusively working remotely. And we're having challenges because we have right now 5 people working on 2 hot desks, which means they just have to kind of book. Some people don't have office space during the week. So we're trying to, again, reshuffle a couple of things to make some more space.
Can we not use this space for office space when we only meet twice a month?
We could, but most likely we would need to set up workspaces and then we'd be taking things apart and bringing things back up. I don't think we could just have someone sitting necessarily at this table. So
Just
We considered it.
we want to utilize the space that we have available without further cost. So just something I'm throwing out there.
we have some additional spaces. We just need to rejig a few things. And that's what we're working on right now.
Awesome, thanks.
Maybe we can move the mayor's office again.
Again,
What do you think?
into my truck. Any other questions? Seeing none,
Tracy?
thank you. Motion received, seconded by Councillor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Tracy,
Thank you, Ms.
report.
Gilmore. So now we're on to the regular council meeting outstanding resolutions. Ms. Fraser.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me today. What I'm presenting for you is the outstanding resolutions as at September 30th, 2021. You'll note that there are a number of outstanding resolutions that are carryovers from previous council. In particular, the affordable housing development cost charges, boundary extension and single-use items reduction strategies, which CAO Gilmore just noted in her quarterly report on strategic priorities, the updates to that. Just a note that the single-use items strategies, as CAO Gilmore noted, will be incorporated into the Community Climate Action Plan. And that was a decision that was made after this report was completed. So that's why it's not reflected in this chart, but that is part of that process as well. There are a few outstanding resolutions from this council. In particular, the Pemberton Gateway sign relocation. That is to move the sign that is out by the motocross track into town, closer to the to 1 Mile Lake Park. And that project, while it was a decision was made in 2020, with the pandemic, things and staffing changes, things kind of stalled on that, but they have been reinvigorated, and our application has now been submitted. But it does take to Front Counter BC, sorry. It does take 2 years for them to review license of occupation applications. So we will continue to monitor. The ministry says to give it 2 years. If they can move it forward sooner, that's great, or it may take longer depending on how their schedule is working post-pandemic. So that is very much still on the books for us to complete. Development cost charge bylaw, as CAO Gilmore provided a bit of an update on that. The Crown Land tenure, Lillooet River Park and boat launch. This has been referred to staff. We're going to incorporate it into our work plans, but it has not been actioned at this point. The Pemberton bursary policy amendment. This was an action that council directed. In particular, wanted to look at adding to the fund, and by adding, right now it's currently at $2,000, and there was discussion around making it a larger amount, and then to permit splitting the bursary among 2 or more recipients. And this is a result of some of the really great applicants that have been that have come forward over the last few years, and the challenge making a decision as to who does or doesn't get that support. The Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action review, that is we've done some preliminary work on that, but it will come forward in 2022. The British Columbia Social Procurement Initiative. We actually had this initial resolution was prior to the presentation that we had in September. So at the October meeting, council did direct that the village be enrolled in the initiative. So this will move off this list because before we had a chance to do any research, we ended up with the presentation, which I think resolved some of the questions about how it works. Declaration of National Day for Truth and Reconciliation was a public holiday. And again, this is something that will be incorporated into the 2022 work plan as part of the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action review. There'll be a broader conversation that takes place to cover all of those elements. So that is pretty much what we have left on the outstanding resolutions. Some are able to move forward. Some are on hold because we're waiting for other agencies, but others will be brought forward in 2022.
Ms. Fraser, questions? I have one. Was there no, with regards to the gateway sign, was there no resolution around the one by the industrial park? We didn't make a motion of any sorts on that?
No, the focus was to deal with the first one, to the one that's furthest out first. And then I think once that's resolved, move to the next sign, one step at a time.
One budget at a time?
Yes. Yeah.
The one thing that we also know, this was just to deal with the movement of it, yet we have to consider whether we want, ending with engagement with, we want to talk about First Nation recognition on our signs and sort of language and how we would incorporate that onto the industrial park one as well.
Yeah. That's why I bring it up actually, is because I was just wondering if it's something that would be appropriate, or maybe not this one, but down the road and in 12 intergovernmental. Maybe that's a good place to start that conversation as to what how we look at what should be included on our sign and where it goes there, because we know there was.
Yeah. One thing we might want to also do is put it through, I'm not sure if it's necessarily the referrals, but the language
Oh, for sure.
portion. And then maybe we could get some ideas and then bring that forward through Newfound 12 to get an understanding if everyone supports that at that table.
Yeah, I just thought maybe just before we would take that step, we have a high level conversation about it.
Council may recall that when discussions were initially around the sign being located, there was a lot of conversation around the language and what should be on it. And we did send a referral to the cultural, not the lands committee, but the cultural. And we do have some language that they have supported and approved. So there's some work that's already been taken place. So that can be brought back to, because that may be something that Newfound Hall would want to look at. Just in terms of what has already been discussed.
Yeah, I know it's down the road, but I was just thinking that we have a new control intergovernmental meeting at the end of the month, so. Okay, thank you. And no other questions? Motion to receive, please. Councilor Zant, second by Councilor Antonelli. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Corporate Legislative Services third quarter administration update.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this report is to present the activities of the administrative function of the Corporate and Legislative Services Department for the third quarter. The information provides a bit of an overview of the number of business licenses, dog tags issued in this quarter, as well as the number of customer service requests received and responded to, and notes in comparison to previous years. The listing also includes information related to other responsibilities corporate and legislative services facilitate, such as freedom of information requests by law enforcement and various permits issued by the village that we support other departments in doing. And just for some clarity around our customer service requests, we have a process or a program in place where anybody who sends an email in or submits an online request for service, we identify, and that gets broken up and sent out to the appropriate department, whether it's through bylaw, operations, development services, And sometimes we get requests that are not related to village business at all. And so then we will refer those people to the agency that or local government that they are seeking support or information from. This third quarter was quieter than the first two quarters, but council will note that there were 11 water use permits issued for a total of 21 this year, which is almost double what we have issued in 2021, and certainly more than we've issued in previous years. This was due in part to the heat dome that came in at the end of June and stuck with us for most of the summer. The number of new homes that were coming online where landscaping was being installed. And so what a water use permit allows is they can water or sprinkle outside the restricted timeframes that are set by the water regulations bylaw. So it might be that if somebody's got brand new planting or new seeding, they're allowed to water every day for 20 minutes in the morning and in the evening, even though we're down to only 1 or 2 days a week. So that is something the permit comes in through reception, developments or operations signs off on it and identifies and determines what their watering allowances will be. Significantly, the village received a number of customer service requests on dog-related complaints this year, which resulted in the increase of the number so far over both 2019 and 2020, with the fourth quarter still to go. This, unfortunately, due to staff absences, bylaw services were unavailable over the third quarter, and as such, the lack of bylaw presence resulted in more owners not following the on-leash requirements in particular. Which we were hearing significant frustration from residents over the summer months, especially in One Mile Lake Park and at various local parks. It's just an issue, and without a presence of somebody out there patrolling, people tend to get complacent. The other challenge that we have is that I think some dog owners don't recognize that there are people out there who are very terrified of dogs. And so they don't follow the on-leash requirements as they perhaps should. So this is something that we hope will improve now that our bylaw enforcement officer is back, although not full-time, but with a little bit more presence out there. Hopefully we'll see an improvement. At this time, customer service requests are tracking similar to 2020. I would like to note that in 2020, we received a number, we did have a bit of a higher amount because we were dealing with a lot of COVID-19 pandemic concerns and complaints around social distancing and mask wearing and that kind of thing. As I noted, bylaw services was limited, and this in turn resulted in fewer tickets being issued. And as such, no tickets in this quarter were sent to collections. And while the village takes an education first approach with bylaw enforcement, winter parking regulations are actively monitored and tickets issued, especially if non-compliant parking results in operational challenges as the snow clearing starts to happen. On that note, we have advertised this week and for the last couple of weeks, we've been advertising and letting people know it's November 15th is coming and parking regulations are in effect. We've posted notification, the signage is up in the different neighborhoods, and we will continue to push out that message. Obviously, we don't have snow on the ground, so any initial enforcement is around education, and we have a little note that we put on people's doors or windows letting them know that, oh, by the way, you shouldn't be parked here at this time, and to keep them just so that it's front of mind. And that is about it for this report. If I'm happy to answer any questions if council has any.
That's good. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just want to ask one question because I'm not really sure. Hen keeping permits, is that the same as a dog license, renewable every year?
Hen keeping permits are issued once for the first time. they get it, then we have it on record, and we are following up this quarter. I'll be reporting out next quarter. We have sent out correspondence to all of those who have hen keeping permits to ask if they are still keeping hens, because I am aware that some people have chosen to go a different route. And just checking in with them to make sure that they're still complying with the requirements. It's not a yearly permit fee, it's a one-time permit fee. And it's more so that we are able to, one, know that they're keeping hens, and then also be able to do an inspection to ensure that they're keeping hens responsibly. And then we follow up. We're very new into this, so we decided this fall that we would send a follow-up letter and just ask everybody where they're at and how they're doing, and make sure that they're still compliant with our regulations.
I might follow up. So are we checking on a yearly basis, like doing an inspection on a yearly basis to make sure they're being kept to a humane situation? Is that what we're doing?
We will look to implement that. We haven't had the resources to be able to do that with no bylaws enforcement, with no bylaws services available to us right now. It's a lot of work to set up appointments and coordinate all that, and we just haven't had the resources, but it is something that we want to implement.
And I guess that goes back to my first question. If we're going to be doing that, should it not be a yearly permit? And maybe something council might want to take a look at. We don't do that with dogs. We issue one ticket once a year and they have to renew them every year. So I'm just thinking in my mind, if we have to go and do an inspection every year, to make sure it's humane, which I understand, the permits aren't expensive. Maybe it's something we should consider.
Is that on us to go see if the chickens are being kept in a humane way? I mean, we issue permits so that it doesn't disrupt neighbors, that sort of thing. We don't go check to make sure dogs are being kept in a humane way.
That's why I'm asking that question. And if we are, we should.
So
be
why would
charging for
we
it.
do those inspections?
We do an initial inspection because they have to put in electric
Sure.
fencing and that kind of stuff, and that's what the permit fee pays for. After that, it's on their own. We're really sending out this notice at this point is to find out who is still keeping hens, because we know that some of the people on our list may no longer be doing that. So we want to be able to take them off the list. But it wasn't the letter sent out wasn't with the intent that we were going to come and inspect again.
Okay.
It was more just, are you still keeping hens, and are you, is everything still working? It wasn't too.
Okay, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, and I just wanted to understand that. I thought I heard originally that we're going out every year to inspect.
No, what we're doing is sending a letter saying, are you still keeping hens, so that we can either have you on our list or not have you on our list.
And whose requirement then is it to check, or does anybody check?
It's not, I guess if there was an issue with somebody who was concerned about hen keep, or somebody not keeping them responsibly, they would contact us and we would follow up with the hen keeper. Similar to what we would do if a dog wasn't being well cared for, we would initially follow up, and then we would turn it over to SPCA.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Noble.
I was just wondering on the chicken keeping thing, do we actually have a written list of standards of care for the village, or is this something we would have to refer to a different agency like the SPCA?
No, we have, it's written within our bylaw, in our hen keeping or in our animal control bylaw. It sets out what the regulations are based on what other municipalities have done, which has been set out by SPCA and other agencies. So it's quite a significant list of requirements to ensure that they're being kept responsibly. And we've had that list in place, or those criteria or guidelines in place for some years.
Sounds good, thank you.
Any other questions? Motion to receive the report, please. Councilor Zant, seconded by Councilor Antonelli. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna bring Mr. Chima in next, I believe. Hello, good morning, Mr. Chima. Thank you for joining us. And when you're ready, we are happy to hear your third quarter report.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thanks. Thank you for having me behind the wall here in the other room. But yeah, I'm here to present my third quarter report. As you know, third quarter reports objective is to present the activities within the operations department. So third quarter, just as reminders, from July till September. So most of this will be focused on our summer activities. It's generally our busiest quarter. We got a lot of projects done this year. One notable thing that I just wanted to bring up before I get into the specific projects is our high water use. We've been seeing, I did present to council earlier in the summer as well, but the usage rates that we've seen this summer were extremely high, much higher than any other previous years, sometimes by up to 10%. It puts an enormous stress on our system, and based on what we've seen with the data, we would attribute most of this to outdoor water usage, sprinkling, possibly some car washing, pools, things like that, but we believe it to be mostly sprinkling of lawns. And as Ms. Fraser pointed out in her quarterly report, we saw an increase in water use permits, which is great that people are seeking the proper ways. I think that's largely based on some of our enforcement and communications around water use. And when we observe water use, we would let people know that this is an option if it is new waterings. But despite this, we still saw extremely high numbers. As soon as the summer ended, we saw a massive drop in our water use. So I know one of the arguments that people make is, well, we need to upgrade our infrastructure if it's causing this big of a problem. But to me, it's quite clear that our infrastructure has capacity. It's just the excessive use that causes these problems. And as soon as the heat tapers off, we're absolutely fine for water use. So yeah, I don't know if you had any questions on that before I get into the specific projects and maintenance activities.
Any questions on water use?
Thanks very much, Mr. Seema. Just a question. We've done some well drilling over the last couple of years to try and find better quality water and then maybe quantity also. Has there been any thoughts to go lower down in the village, more towards the, say, the medical area where it's the lowest spot that the water is probably accumulating, to see if we can get a better flow down there?
Yes, so it's a little bit more complicated than that, but essentially where our current wells are within the Pemberton Creek aquifer. If you think of it as an underground river that's associated with that specific river, as you move away towards, say, the medical clinic, we would be entering then the Lillooet River aquifer, which would certainly have a much higher yield. The question then would be quality. All indications that from irrigation wells and things that are around town, the Lillooet River aquifer is much higher in manganese and iron. We've already been seeing an increase in those levels in our Pemberton Creek aquifer, which I'll get into a little bit later in this report, into our investigations of water treatment. But one of the thoughts was that when we look at treating the current source, we would want to look at the possibility of also treating the Lillooet River aquifer, which has these higher levels, so that then another source from the Lillooet River aquifer would be feasible. Because as of right now, if we were to drill a well in that aquifer, the manganese and iron rates would be so high that it wouldn't be, we already get some complaints about cloudy water. That would be nonstop. In fact, I believe it would be higher than the maximum allowable concentration as stipulated by the federal regulations. So to answer your question, yes, it's certainly been considered. It would require treatment, but that's something that we're looking into.
Thank you.
Any questions? Tom?
Thank you. Just pull back up my report. So, right, I'll just kind of rhyme off some of our regular maintenance and projects that we completed. I'm happy to talk in more detail. I don't want to take too much of your time, so please feel free to jump in and ask me more details. But in addition to our regular operations, which includes the wastewater treatment plant, water conditioning plant, the well house, pumping stations, sanitary lift stations, we also perform the ongoing new service connection inspections, which when there's a new build, we just make sure that the water and sewer connections are adequate. We've been working with the building department on doing this, but I think it's important. It's the connection point to our system, and obviously with a lot of new builds this year, that's keeping us quite busy, as well as the development, engineering, design reviews and inspections. That's keeping the operations department really busy with Sunstone, Tayada, etc. Some of the more major developments. But in addition to that, we did quite a bit of ditching this year, which I think we saw a successful result yesterday. I don't want to take the credit for that. I think we got pretty lucky in terms of the high water that we had, but our ditches performed fairly well, and I think that's in part to the ditching work that we did in the summer. We installed a new culvert on Walnut Street. That was in our annual budget for this year, so we got that completed along with the Pemberton Valley Diking District. And the good news on that was the ditch was dry, so we didn't actually require any fish removal as we initially budgeted for. So that came in well under budget. We purchased our new water service truck, which was a long time coming. The water department's been using a public works truck, which due to budgetary where the funding comes from, I think it's important that the water department had their own truck. And now not only that, but we got a service truck that has all the tools and can carry all the parts and bits that are needed for that function, which is great. So we've already noticed the effect, when you go to a job and you have everything in the truck, it's quite useful. It saves trips back and forth to the shop, etc. We installed the rainbow crosswalk on Frontier Street. We included some photos later on in the report there. You're welcome to have a look. I'm sure you've all seen it as well. It's nice to get that finally done. Just on a note for that, one of the delays was that we were hoping to do that in conjunction with our annual line painting. Unfortunately, this year, due to supply chain problems, I guess, apparently one of the main suppliers for line paint on road line paint was in Texas or something, and due to the freeze that happened, that there was no paint available, and we've been told we still are on back order for that. So unfortunately, we weren't able to get all the rest of the lines done this year, but we made this a priority, and it used a torch-on material that's different than the regular line paint, so we were able to accomplish that, which we're quite happy with. We also performed a few water main repairs, service line inspections, minor paving repairs. We had a few more paving jobs, which may or may not still get done. I think it's pretty doubtful. Unfortunately, with paving, you're sort of at the mercy of the paving contractors who is very weather dependent, and you often get bumped for bigger projects. So I would doubt that we're going to see any more paving done this year. But we completed our water reservoir cleaning recently, just at the end of the third quarter. And I noted the water conservation communications campaign, just in relation to what I was speaking about earlier, the extremely high water use. We did put a bit more effort into communicating this to the public. Unfortunately, I still think our message is not totally getting out there. So it's something that I definitely want to look at, just more and more ways that we can communicate to the public, because I mean, as we see yesterday, as an example, we're surrounded by water, and I think people don't realize that it's not the same thing, that it's that the water source is not really the same as all the rivers and water that we have. So I just think getting that message out is very important for our water conservation campaign. Lastly, we mentioned the water treatment investigations. So that's been going along. I think last spoke to our consultants, they're at 90% on the preliminary design. So we're excited to see that. And then we'll be able to get some budgetary numbers for next year that hopefully move that project along. Going into parks, again, the regular sort of ongoing maintenance, garbage collection, public receptacles, sanitization of public toilets. We got some new waste receptacles this year around town, which was pretty cool. We got them from BC Parks as a donation. I guess they were replacing some of their bins, so we still have quite a large stock that we're planning to roll out, and we're hoping to improve the imagery on them to encourage some more recycling, and we might even look at doing some compost bins around town, especially as a lot of the restaurants are doing the compostable packaging and stuff. So yeah, just some plans going ahead there. Construction of soccer field number 2 at Dundalk Park, that's completed. Other than the lighting, I think Ms. Gilmore spoke of this before. Unfortunately, the one hangup is the approval from BC Hydro, and they require a statutory right of way, which when that got sent through, our lawyers had some comments, and it's been going back and forth. I think we're almost there, and then once that agreement is signed, that's when they'll issue the construction drawings, and that's when the construction can happen. We're hoping still that it can be done this year, but I'm thinking it's more likely to happen in the spring. The award of the bike skills contract happened in the third quarter. Again, it's a very exciting project. Not much has been happening there, mainly due to weather, but we're still not behind schedule or anything like that. The contractor, I spoke with the designer yesterday, who is still confident that we'll be able to get everything done in the spring. We're hoping to get some more work done this fall, but it's all weather dependent, and with the amount of rain, it just makes a sloppy mess if you do too much in the muck. 1 Mile Lake parking lot dust control spraying we got done this third quarter. Also, we were working on the trail widening project. Unfortunately, in consultation with our environmental consultants, we put in an application for just a notification that we would be doing works within a stream, as it is according to the regulations, it's a requirement. And we got notice back that from FLNRO, which is the Forest Lands and Natural Resources Department of the province, that we're going to need full permitting, which unfortunately there's apparently a backlog of 18 to 24 months. So we're going to get that application in, but unfortunately that project can't move ahead until we get all the environmental permitting required. 1 Mile Lake playground installation was very exciting. I've featured a couple photos of that, and my daughter is shown in the ship there, enjoying it, and I've seen lots of kids enjoying it. I'm pretty glad that we waited. We talked about doing that in July, but just the amount of park use that we've seen in that park, we decided to wait until the fall, and we did a little bit of extra drainage work there just because we've seen pooling and issues in the past. So yeah, very excited to have that done, and I think that's pretty much all for my list. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, I'd ask that you accept this report.
Mr. Chima, any questions? Got it.
Thanks very much. Just wanted to check with you, Mr. Seema, on the 2 new pieces of equipment that we purchased in the last year. Have they met your expectation, and are they being utilized on a regular basis?
I assume that you're referring to the loader and the excavator. Yes, we've actually used the excavator more than we had even planned. The loader, I think I mentioned that the loader is used periodically in the summer for loading material, but mainly its function is in the winter. So we're getting that all prepped for winter right now. And yeah, absolutely. That was more of a like for like replacement due to the age of our previous loader, but the excavator certainly has been proven to be a invaluable asset. We've even been using it to work alongside the Pemberton Diking District. They'll call us up if they need it. They have a large excavator, but ours is much more maneuverable and easy to transport. So we've been sort of sharing equipment with them, and we've used their large excavator for some projects. So yeah, no, it's been incredible. Definitely very pleased with that purchase.
If I might just follow up, now that you bring up the Diking District, have we entered into any kind of equipment, I wouldn't say exchange, but equipment sharing kind of attitude with the Diking District?
Yeah, we don't have any formal agreements, but obviously we're sort of in the, it's in each of our interests to, a lot of our projects are overlapping. I mentioned the project there on Walnut Street, which we worked with them. They wanted to established access to their culverts, and it was our ditch that we noted had issues draining. So we worked with them on that. We're constantly working with the Diking District, and even in emergencies such as yesterday, anytime we can help them, we're happy to do so. And they've helped us with the 1 Mile Lake inlet project that we completed last year. We used their machine. They provided guidance, and we're still yet to install the new culvert there. But the idea of that was that there would be a gate valve on it, and the Diking District has offered, while they're closing valves as they do during high water events, they could do that one. So absolutely, we're working very closely with them, and we've established a very good relationship. Kevin, the operations manager, and I are on the phone constantly with each other, and we're working together quite regularly. So as I said, there's no formal equipment sharing agreement, but we definitely help each other out whenever we can. And if that involves lending some equipment or even an operator, I mean, sometimes Kevin will need a culvert opened up, and we have someone on shift in a loader that can just pop by and do it. It's absolutely
Great, thank you very much. That's good to hear. It's nice to see the same taxpayer getting benefit from two different community services. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, can I get a motion received, please? Scott, seconded by Councilor Antonelli. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Chima. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
So we'll wait for Mr. McCray to join us for his first report to council.
Mhm.
Oh, or did I skip one?
No. Hard to have a bite of lunch when the camera's on you all the time.
I'm pretty small. You can't tell if this comes out.
But you gotta put your mask down.
Morning, Mr. McCray. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me here today to present the third quarter report for the Development Services Department. I'll give a quick summary of the report, and then of course we have time for questions. So as Mr. Chima alluded to, the third quarter was July to September. Actually, I started this role at October 4th, so this is just before my time. But essentially collected a total of about $94,000 in building permit fees on just about $12 million worth of construction in the third quarter. We collected just over $40,000 in DCCs. We had one new development permit received. That was DP 91 for Sunstone phase 2B lot grading. We have 3 others that are ongoing. There's 3 minor development permits issued, 1 development variance permit issued, and 2 others are in progress. We have the OCP and rezoning application 131 for the new K-12 Francophone school had public reading in September, and then third reading of the bylaw was actually in October, but I'll mention it here. OR 133, which is the OCP and rezoning application for Nkukuma, the benchlands, is in process as well. The land transfer was completed in the third quarter. There are 6 subdivision applications in process. The one we'll speak to here quickly is the PSS lot split. Their tentative acceptance letter has expired, but we're in contact with the applicant, and they are aware of what they need to do to renew the letter and they'll proceed with that when they're ready. There were 9 site alteration permits issued in the third quarter, 1 board of variance decision. The variance was granted. It was for a front yard setback. Would you like to ask any questions about the current planning, or shall I just jump right into the next section as well?
Any questions so far? Carry on, Mr. McCray.
Okay. So long range planning items. The Community Climate Action Plan is coming into the final lap here. So the draft is complete in review with staff. We're aiming to get it in front of committee of the whole on December 7th. And then it'll go through public engagement in January, and ideally we'll be in front of a regular council meeting in February. The zoning bylaw housekeeping amendments is in progress. Again, we're aiming to have that in front of committee of the whole on December 7th. We're dealing with quite a lot of development activity in the village, as you're all aware, I'm sure. So that just means the staff's workload is exceptional, and we're just trying to work through all that. So again, targeting December 7th, but yeah, we'll see if that can happen. I think it can, but just mindful of the workload for sure. As Ms. Gilmore alluded to, the DCC bylaw is in process, working with the village engineers on this one as well, ISL. Goal for completion is mid next year. The OCP revision is also in progress. The Community Climate Action Plan will be a big part of that. It's going to inform the OCP revision in a big way. So, we can kind of think of getting the Community Climate Action Plan done is going to kickstart the OCP revision. And in terms of more specific goals on that project, the OCP revision, we're hoping to get the first draft of the project plan done in the first quarter of 2022. And last but not least, the building bylaw was, the update of the building bylaw was completed as well. So that has been, that bylaw has been adopted. And that's the quick overview of the Development Services Department for the third quarter. Any questions?
Questions?
Yeah, thanks very much. I appreciate that, Mr. McRae. I'm just wondering, do you have any indications of what we're looking at next year in the building department for workload? I mean, are you having people talking to you about subdivisions, building, and that type of thing coming up?
Definitely, yeah. I'd say, again, I don't have a long history of the conversation to know for sure whether what we're dealing with right now is elevated or typical, but it definitely feels elevated to me. There's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of interest, a lot of inquiries about what can be done with land in the village. So I expect it will be a busy year next year.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Motion received. Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Pinelli. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. McRae.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
And who's up next? Library. Was Emma doing a separate?
I'm not sure if she's here. If she is, she'll be doing it in conjunction with Ms. Burns.
I believe we only have Ms. Burns.
Oh, they're there.
Oh, we got them both. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Burns, Ms. Gillis. We're anxious to hear about your third quarter activities. It's all yours.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Emma and I are sitting in on this one together because this is a library-driven initiative. I just got to say, sure, apply. So the purpose of this report is to inform you of an accessibility grant that the library has received from the federal government. And the application occurred in June of 2019, June of 2020. It was initially thought to have been denied. Our purpose for applying it's multifaceted in that in 2018, there was a Rick Hansen Foundation conducted an accessibility audit and had made recommendations to increase our accessibility in this facility. And then obviously with COVID, there were operational impacts and potentially minimizing accessibility to the library. So when this application occurred, the purpose and the intent is to increase accessibility for the library, which is predominantly using the south entrance of the facility at this time, and due to COVID's responses still. So our goal would be to add a ramp where the existing stairwell is, as well as accessible doors to the main doors, accessing from outside, accessible doors for the inside doors into the library from the lobby, as well as looking at making the fire exit door accessible as well. That's pretty much a high level summary of what the intention is. And the grant is for $100,000. So at this time, we're busy receiving quotes for the door upgrades. And we will be moving forward with getting a contractor to draw up some drawings so that we can move forward with the ramp hopefully in the spring. I give it to you to ask some questions at this time. Otherwise, we recommend that you receive this information report.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Emma, did you want to add anything? Or?
Thank you for asking. No, that's a great question. No, I think Christine's covered most of it. For a long time, the accessibility on the southern side of the building has been a challenge, particularly for during fire evacuations. That was one of the things that was really brought out from the Rick Hansen grant. And when we have had fire drills, generally we've had seniors and people with infants, and it's always ironically happened in bad weather. And so we've had to assist people up and down the steps to get to our muster point. So it's long been a challenge on that side, just with where our fire escape is and where our muster point is. So that's always been a really key goal for us as well, just to improve that, because it is one of those things when there's an evacuation, it typically happens when you've got your most vulnerable population in the space. And the side of the building that we're using is just not very accessible for people with mobility issues. So that was definitely a key driver, but really what highlighted the need for it was the COVID protocols and just access to the building in general, and just the way people have had to change how they use the space and have the two distinct access points. So and again, as the report mentions, also giving us a little bit more flexibility in our operating hours outside of what the community centre is working on. Just as a core public service, it would be good to have a little bit of extra flexibility if there's days that we think would be beneficial to the community that maybe don't reflect the recreation needs, but do reflect the needs of those wanting to access library services.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on getting the grant. I think it's a win-win for the library, for the rec center, for everybody. So it's great stuff. Any questions?
If I might just ask one question, if we're going to open that area up for accessibility, which is a good plan, do you see any need on the main street to add one accessible parking spot? Because right now, to access that building, if people are parking, you got to go now all the way around the building to get in. So are we looking at designated a spot for that?
Thank you. That is a great question, Councillor Craddock. We have not actually, but
That's a great idea.
we can look at that for future accessibility, and depending on where we land with the initial costs, we might have a little bit of extra to incorporate that.
Thank you very much. I think it'd be a really good thing to do. I know it's a highways road out the front there, but people park along it, and it would certainly be nice to have at least one spot designated for that situation. So thanks for looking into that.
Yeah.
If I can just add a comment, typically Ministry of Transportation has been all right with allowing some parking on there, but we wouldn't be able to designate any space in that particular area. Should be noted that there is accessibility doors on the north side, as well as coming up through the elevator. I believe there are spots in the underground as well designated for accessible parking, but we wouldn't be able to designate spots on the highway.
And I guess that's why I'm bringing this up, because if we're spending $100,000 in that side of the building, nobody going into the parking lot or downstairs parking is going to come all the way around the street to get in.
No.
So are we doing this for people that are just using our sidewalks to access it, or what's the
I
purpose?
think that's definitely one place, but also as mentioned, fire drills are a big issue. So to get people out of the building from the library, that will also serve as, and it's grant funding. So it's not, so we're contributing any taxpayer dollars onto this.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm glad that we're doing it, but it would be nice to approach the highways department and say, this is what we're doing. We got grant funding for this. Can we designate one spot for accessible? So anyway, I'd like us to look into it. Thank you.
Councilor Antonelli.
Yeah, I'm glad this is, being approached. And one thing that does strike me is there's quite a grade difference that you're gonna have to, get those ramps up and down. And I think there'll be a lot of railings out front. And so I hope that we can look at the aesthetics of the railings. The way the stairs are now, it's a big feature of the building, sort of a welcoming feature. And so I do wonder how, the stripes of railings back and forth across the front of the building will contribute to that welcome. So I'd just like to make sure that's considered.
Thank you, Councillor Antonelli. It is something we have discussed, and we hope that once we receive some architectural drawings that they can incorporate what we're hoping we will see for sure.
Any questions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to receive? We don't need to support, just receive, right? Motion to receive, please. Councilor Crowley, second by Councilor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Gillis.
Okay, I'm not against that.
Have a great day. Ms. Burns, you're sticking around for your third quarter.
Good morning again. Thank you very much. I guess I will just jump right into Recreation Services third quarter report. It's been, as it has been for everyone, a very interesting third quarter. We started off with having a fantastic registration in the spring for programming that we created for the summer. We were pleased with ensuring that there were at least a program a week all summer long that we were aware of for ages 4 and up, which was great. And then we also then we move into group fitness, which is our other area of programming that has been revived since I began. We normally third quarter is a low quarter for fitness programs because the weather invites everyone to come on outside and play outside and do their own thing. So we didn't make a lot of changes, but we were able to offer a total of 33 fitness classes through July, August, and September, which resulted in 432 unique registrations, which I believe is rewarding for sure. It means everything was accepted. We didn't cancel any fitness programs, so all of that was wonderful. We had very limited seniors and youth programming throughout July and August, as it was spent really just trying to focus on increasing service for fourth quarter and setting in motion plans to welcome seniors back into the facilities, as well as hopefully generate some more youth presence as well. The fitness center this summer has been where we've pivoted the most, I would say. We had 3,388 unique visits to the fitness center this summer. There were multiple operational modifications due to the provincial restart plans kicking into its third step on July 1st. We have been acting very mindfully in how we're increasing our services, just because every increase to service has an operational impact from a staffing perspective, as well as we didn't want to jump whole hog into step 3 of the restart plan with the potential of everything being rolled back, which was a good plan in the end. Basically, what happened with operations from that perspective is fitness center, we gradually removed the transition time between fitness blocks, and we are gradually increasing capacity in the fitness center, as well as returning equipment to the space. We absorbed all of park use permits this summer for the village of Pemberton, as well as the SLRD properties that we have previously managed operations for. There were a total of 93 agreements this third quarter with 587 outdoor sessions, accumulating to 2,636 hours of use in all of our outdoor spaces, including indoor spaces as well. So that's refreshing. August 24th, we were hit with the reinstitution of face covering requirements, and that began immediately on August 25th. So that required some resurgence of pulling out a bunch of signage, as well as potentially doing a bunch of communications pushes around mask wearing being required inside public spaces again. As well, at that time, they pushed out the proof of vaccination information, stating requirements for that began on September 13th, when we were required to start seeing proof of vaccination to participate in any activities that are fitness oriented in the facility. There were multiple changes to that throughout the course of September, as there are still changes being made to that order, and we are adapting as required. I think all of this leads up to the fact that we definitely had some staffing challenges in the third quarter. On top of trying to increase service, we also had some staffing. We were recruiting for 2 full-time positions for the majority of the third quarter, and those individuals began, latter part of September. So we're in a position now where we're starting to feel fully staffed. We are still increasing our casual component so that we can complement everyone's schedules and ensure that we have adequate coverage for facility operations. We had lots going on outside, and we are very grateful for our outdoor contractor who maintains our parks and fields around the Pemberton and District Community Center. And he happily took on doing some additional maintenance out there for us that our facility maintenance coordinator would normally have taken care of throughout the third quarter. So we are grateful for that. And then from there, I think I'm open to questions. Otherwise, I would recommend that council receive the Recreation Services 2021 third quarter report.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Any questions?
Comment.
Go ahead, Councillor Zhang.
Thanks. I just want to say thanks to Ms. Burns for the report and being that hub in our community. You guys have done a great job of keeping the community center going. So thanks very much for navigating all this and keep up the work.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just one question, and you've heard this from me before. We talked in the spring about looking at potentially starting up some pickleball or seeing if that's something that we could do. And I've been contacted by people in Squamish that say that if we do start it up, they would be pleased to come up and help us get it going if that's needed. And I'm just wondering if that's into your plans for maybe February, March of next year.
Yes, thank you for asking, Councillor Craddock. Pickleball is completely on our radar, and we have been working with the Whistler Pickleball Association in regards to trying to coordinate some programming. We're hopeful that we will see them come up and offer some programming in January, February, and March.
Great, looking forward to that. Thanks very much.
Any other questions? Motion to receive the report. Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Burns. Great day.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
We're moving on to permanent fire and rescue. We'll wait for Mr. Grossman to join us. The sunlight out there seems unnatural when I look at the window. It's like a prop or a picture.
If you look up in the mountain here now, it just looks so nice.
Good morning, Mr. Grossman. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity to present my third quarter report. So for the third quarter, I'll just get right into it. For the third quarter, we had 112 incidences, and compared to 2020, this call volume is up as per the chart in that you can see 5-year comparison per month. In the next chart, it shows kind of the January to the green squares indicate that the calls were greater than the number of days in the month. So as you can see, we're back kind of up. We've got 4 months for 2021 that we had more incidences than days in the month. Things are going up. We're getting almost a call a day. For September, the next chart shows the number of instances per day, which shows most of the days have 1 call, some have 2, some have 3 calls. So it's getting busy again with more and more people traveling. Then for responses, this chart here is a breakdown of the average number of firefighters attending, which was requested at one point in time, which shows that in 2021, out of the 273 incidences that we've had to the end of September, we had 6.92, or roughly 6 to 7 members responding at a time, which is our percentage of members responding is 20%, which is basically, from my review, is the North America norm for volunteer departments. And you can see the number of people that are responding to calls based on motor vehicle, medical, all that, like different calls. As set out in the bylaw, we have the different types, and below we have a regional district agreements with the SLRD and the Lillooet. So this chart, I think they're a little mixed up, but the chart below shows year to date. So 43% of our calls are medicals, 20% are fire related, motor vehicle incidences are 20%, and then the rest of them make up the difference. The majority of our calls for this year to date, is in the Village of Pemberton area of 42%. Lillooet is 31%, and then the regional district makes up 16%, and our fire district, which is the Heights, the Fringe, and the Meadows, is 11% of the call volume. The chart below that shows the incidences by area and type. So as you can see, a total of 127 calls have been within the Village of Pemberton area, 98% within Lillooet. The fire district has 34, and the regional district is 45, and the majority of those are MVIs. And then we get some medical aid calls, which end up, we go to an MVI, and then we get a kind of another call of a medical, so that we have to deal with at the same time. And then fire related we've done wildland fire assisted BC Wildfire Service over August, September to assist with wildfires, which they would call us to attend. So that's what the fire related calls are outside of our fire district. Membership at the end of the third quarter was at 35, 2 full-time members, 33 volunteers. And then we have one full-time administrative assistant and 2 term position Fire Smart staff. Training hours, we had 37, we did 12 training sessions with 37 hours. We had 4 meetings, which 3 to 4 hours of meetings, and incidences out of that third quarter, 112 incidences and 130 hours roughly. Also during the third quarter, which is already noted before, in 2021, we assisted from July the 13th to August 26th doing wildland fires throughout the interior. So that was mostly in the Cache Creek area to Spence's Bridge to Lower Nicola First Nations, and staying at Cache Creek as well. in that time, we were doing 2-week deployment. So we'd have 4 people out for 2 weeks, come back, and then another 4 people would go out for the 2 weeks. There was new business application review and fire inspections. There was 2 of them. And this is my report. It's kind of quick. If you have any questions, that'd be great to accept.
Thank you, Chief Grossman. Any questions? Got it, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Chief. First of all, thank you for yourself and the crew that was out yesterday. I was out walking around and we had a discussion, but it was nice to see so much effort put on their behalf, helping, doing the pumping and working with the flooding situation. So thanks for that, first of all. On page 64 of the report, incident percentage by type. Can you just, I know motor vehicles, that's 20%, but medical aid, that seems to be a huge amount of time. What does that involve? I'm just, 43%, but it's not motor vehicle. What are we looking at? What is your staff going out and looking after?
So basically we've, like, since me starting here, I've had a review with BC Ambulance as to what we respond to. And we're only responding to life-threatening incidences. So depending on the nature of someone calling, if BC Ambulance or the 911 service feels that it's life-threatening, then we respond. So there's been a lot of life-threatening situations that we go to, like chest pains, different call-ins trigger different types, and chest pains because it's possible heart attack, seizures where a person could get hurt. Like, these are all life-threatening incidences that we respond to. So that's what we've been doing. And then during the August, September, before, we've been responding to a lot because of ambulance delays. So if they're life-threatening, we respond, and if ambulance is delayed, we respond. During the August, September, with BC Ambulance going through their time of trying to figure out how to best staff, there was a lot of ambulance delayed calls as well, so that they ended up being a lot of life-threatening situations. So.
Thank you very much. And being that it's mostly medical aid, is that something that can be recouped from the Ministry of Health?
At this point, there is none of that available. We are looking at different options, but so far there's been nothing in the province. And I think Ms. Gilmore has been in conversations as well. But yeah, at this point, there's no reimbursement.
Okay. Thanks very much, Chief.
Any questions? None, could I get a motion to receive, please? Councilor Antonelli, second by Councilor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief Grossman. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, and you too, Mayor and Council.
Okay, moving on to number 10, we're on bylaws for first, second, and third reading. Kennedy is going to be with us. We're looking at the Village of Pemberton bylaw notice enforcement bylaw 874/2020, amendment administrative assistant bylaw 918/2021. Ms. Kennedy.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
You bet.
Oh, very good. Thank you for taking the time to hear my report. The purpose of this report is to present to Council an amendment to bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 874/2020 for first, second, and third readings. The bylaw notice enforcement bylaw provides an alternative, a simpler and less costly alternative to the municipal ticket information and the provincial courts systems. And this amendment has been proposed to extend authorization to issue bylaw notices and to act as a screening officer for bylaw notice disputes to the new position of bylaw administrative assistant. The proposed changes are shown in red in a consolidated version of the bylaw on our website and include the addition of bylaw administrative assistant under Part 8 screening officers and under Part 10 bylaw officers. And other minor changes and corrections have been included to streamline the formatting of the bylaw And to facilitate future changes, bylaw contraventions and penalties that were previously listed in a single schedule have been moved to a separate schedule for each bylaw. Each bylaw enforced under the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw needs to include a statement to this effect. And during review of the bylaws, staff found this wording to be missing or inconsistent in some cases. For convenience, staff have corrected these inconsistencies through consequential amendments that form part of this amendment bylaw. And to prevent unnecessary duplication and to simplify future updates, staff have removed the fine schedules from the contributing bylaws, and fine schedules will reside solely in the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw in the future. If the proposed amendment bylaw is adopted, staff will post consolidations of all the affected bylaws on the village website. The recommendation of the report is that bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 874 2020 amendment bylaw administrative assistant bylaw number 918 2021 receive first, second, and third readings. And this concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Kennedy, questions? Scott?
Thank you very much. Just on page 112, under 7.8 and 7.9, I think are they the same regulation? Is that just a duplication?
Seven 7.8. Yep, those are the same regulation. Thank you for catching that. We'll make that correction before bringing the bylaw back.
Thank you very much. I just wanted you to know that I actually read through it. It's really
I'm
what it is.
very impressed that you read all of the schedules into that detail. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
We need a resolution to, as amended.
Any other questions?
Motion as amended.
So motion to, let me just take it back. Motion to give the village permanent bylaw notice of enforcement bylaw 874 2020 amendment number 918 2021, first, second, and third reading as amended. By Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Paddock. Further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you.
Next, we have a couple of bylaws for adoption. The first is village permanent parks and public spaces bylaw 797, amendment household waste bylaw 915/2021. Would somebody like to move adoption? Councillor Zant, second by Councillor Noble. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. And also for adoption is village permanent bylaw 912, building official definition bylaw, sorry, amended building official bylaw, building official definition bylaw 916/2021, moved by Councillor Craddock, second by Councillor Antonelli. Further discussion? Opposed? Motion carries. Awesome. Mayor's report. Fairly quick. I actually snuck away for 5 days, so went to visit some family back east. So I don't have a ton of meetings to report on. As Ms. Gilmore mentioned earlier, there was a meeting with TransLink and BC Transit about the demand study, the transit demand study that's being conducted. Members of the transit committee from Squamish Nation to Lewa Nation and all the municipalities in between, we were all present on the call. Couple of items, we were basically trying to give our input on that demand study and how we would like to see it go. So some of the main comments that came out of that conversation that we tried to impress were, first of all, to accelerate the timelines of the study so that the demand study can be completed sooner and therefore we can meet the provincial government budget cycle for next year. As proposed, the demand study, by the time we received and work with it, we will be pushed again to the next budget cycle provincially. So that was a big request that they accelerate that. I once again made the comment about maintaining that this study looks at a comprehensive system and not a piecemeal approach to where the highest current demands lay. That the demand study looks at building a system that works within itself so that we can access all corners of the affected area. So right up to once again to Mount Currie. And along those lines, I also brought up a point that I hope that they would not, as they're looking at the demand study and what exists, what services exist and what gaps exist, that they don't check the box in our area by thinking, hey, Pemberton already has a transit system. They're good to Whistler. I don't want that to be how they approach this. As we know, we have been funding with Area C and Leeway Nation, our little regional transit, local transit system at our own cost, which is becoming almost unaffordable. So we want our system to be absorbed into the bigger comprehensive system. So I just tried to illustrate, or point out that I would hope that they wouldn't check the box and say, okay, they're good from that little area, let's focus on the south. What else was brought up on that? I guess that was the main part of it. And then I guess the other thing that we keep, and then we'll bring this to the ministers' meeting as well, we would like to get our governance and funding discussions underway as this demand study is being conducted and not wait till the end, so that once again, we can put it all together quickly for the next budget cycle at provincial level. Did another CAO search, our hiring committee meeting. Just an update on that. We're meeting on December 5th and 9th, I believe, 6th and 9th, something like that, to do interviews for a short list. So we're moving ahead there. Really not a lot of other meetings. Lots coming up. We've got PVIS on Thursday, Pembroke Valley Emergency Management Committee, Monday, Fire Committee, and Miquantwell Intergovernmental, SLRD. Those are all coming up in the next week and a half, 2 weeks. And I just was going to make a similar mention as to Councillor Craddock about the recent lovely weather we just went through. And I just wanted to acknowledge the fire department. I want to acknowledge all the staff. The CAO once again had to sacrifice her time off. Sarah Tays for the work she did, Public Works for the work they did during the high rains that we just got and keeping everything moving. I'd say our downtown stormwater management system has been well tested and it seems to be functioning well. So it's good news, really. I don't think people realize it. Not that I doubted it, but like I say, it's certainly been well tested. And again, thanks to all the staff for the effort they put in the last couple of days. And I guess I wanted to ask, I'm going to call this part of my marriage report. I know we were sending correspondence to MOTI with regards to the Lillooet Bridge. It's just gotten worse and worse. Have we sent that correspondence or?
We actually spoke, staff have spoken to one another and we asked them to go and do some work to repair it right away. In fact, would be Miller Cap to go and do some work and they were going to work on it. So I don't know if it's again popped out, but.
There's some massive holes in there. There's nothing in there.
They put it in and it comes out 3 days later. They're wasting their time doing that. They got to put concrete in.
I don't know that they can do a bigger fix at this time of year, but it's in worse shape. So I just wanted to point it out. I was curious what the contact was. If we are in contact with MOTI, I'd like to keep reinforcing that. And sorry to backtrack. I also failed to mention Kevin Clark and the work of the PVDD over the last few days. Kevin's been out there a ton of hours working away and updating. And so I want to acknowledge Kevin and the Dyking District work. And also point out that the Arn Canal culvert work that just got done also got tested, and we would have seen a lot more flooding, I believe, in that area had that project not completed. So it was nice to see that work well as well. And that's it. Go ahead.
One small little acknowledgement. I just wanted to acknowledge there was an individual at the trailer park who's installed their own pump and who they consistently go out and pump that water in that area. And I know the PVDD did acknowledge this individual as well, but definitely applause for just always marching in and making sure that area is complete all on its own.
Awesome.
Yeah, they had 2 pumps going there yesterday.
Yeah.
Any council reports?
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor Richmond. I was pleased to attend the Tourism Pemberton meeting chaired by Andy Meeker. And the first thing we'll note that they have decided to have one of their members attend every one of our meetings. So Danny's here today on behalf of Tourism Pemberton, and I think the exchange between us is going to be nice to have that kind of interaction between us. Just a few things from that meeting. They're running a good financial balance right now. They're in the positive side to a tune of about $38,000. Their sanitation project that they presented to us in the Peavis is going very well in the backcountry, with about 60% of the funds now spent, and there are composting toilets in place and being utilized very well. They're looking at a potential long-term project, and they will be writing a letter to council and the SLRD looking for potential support or interest in putting a bridge across the Pemberton Creek waterfall area, and then bringing a trail down from the other side. So it'd be a nice viewing area and promote tourism in that area. So I said I would bring it forward ahead of their letter just to give us a heads up that they're considering doing that. They've been looking at joining the Backcountry Touring BC Society as a member, which focuses a lot on ski touring, and the amount of media exposure coming out of that for this area would be huge. And there's a group of 8 across BC, so it'll be a good exchange of information between the two. As far as their compostable washrooms are going, and their 60% funding been spent, they're looking at putting 2 washrooms in Semaphore, which is certainly well needed, and that's going to be a real benefit. I'm just going to give you quick numbers I could write down where they have put composting toilets at the present time. In the Hot Springs, in the Upper Launch area, Pool Creek, Wendy Thompson Hut, Shadow Lake, Keyhole is a potential. They're looking at Tenkill Lake, remove the pit toilet and added compostable toilets and cleaned up the picnic and camping area up there. Again, they're going to be writing us a letter, and it's just a heads up to council ahead of time regarding putting a compostable toilet at the Mackenzie Basin parking area, which would be a handy spot. And they still have availability to put one on our soccer field, which would basically get rid of the pit toilet that we have there now and put a compostable one in. So they'll be sending us a letter regarding our interest in that happening. So we should be seeing that before too long. Their wayfinding project, putting signs up and promoting the area and letting people know where different access to tourism is. They've been told by MOTI that they cannot put them on their right-of-ways, that it would have to go on private property. So they're investigating that. They also got a $20,000 grant towards promotion of Range Beyond Range Circle route. And I think that's interesting to see what happens. And overall, I enjoyed the meeting. It was well run, and it was nice to be at the meeting. And I thank Danny for being here today on their behalf. And that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
That's great. I don't know that, I mean, with the amenities building and the soccer fields, I don't know if we would need that service at the soccer fields. It might be, but we use those funds for another spot, Mackenzie Basin.
The one issue there is that's a wetland, and to put any kind of toilet facility in that area is probably not advisable. That's what we advised last time.
Right.
So.
Right. Any other council reports? Councilor Zan, go ahead.
I attended the library meeting where we went through some of the director's evaluation framework. Just basically, we're going to review it, do them as evaluation over the next meeting. And then the other thing was the library want to let people know that they do have passes for the Britannia Mine in their library as part of their library collection. So if a family wants to, they can grab the pass and head down to the Britannia Mine Museum. And on top of that, they're going to look at getting a few more passes for public use, whether it's the museum or something else that the public can go and see with their family. And then I attended the Remembrance Day ceremony, which big thank you to the Legion and all their partners, the fire department and the Legion for putting that on again. It was a fantastic Remembrance Day ceremony once again. So, and big thanks to Councillor Noble for laying the wreath on the behalf of the village of Pemberton. That's my report.
Any other council reports? Council Noble, go ahead.
Don't have much, but I did attend the Remembrance Day ceremony, and I just have to say it was so good to see so much of the community out. And I'm really looking forward to things opening up and having more community events.
Thank you. Good.
I do have an update on Ministry of Transportation for the road, the Lower River Bridge. They have this slated for the spring.
Okay, in the last 5 days, you just got that, or?
They would want it to
So what
protect
we've got
some-
there right now is what we've got for the winter then.
We can follow up and see if there's anything else they can do, but staff are in regular correspondence with the maintenance team there, so.
Well, that's good news. I mean, it's, I tend to agree that the temporary patches don't last very long, but.
I think it is good news, something we've done in the spring, but it's so bad right now. If a car goes over it, they would damage the vehicle.
Mhm.
So something needs to be done next week. I don't know what it is.
Yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we can, I agree with both of you. I think it has to be done right away. I also see that the patches don't seem to last long, but I'm happy to keep sending that message out.
Are you in touch with Director Mack at all? I know he used to actually take people on drive arounds, but.
And
he
there's
maybe-
a new regional manager, is that right, for MOTA? He was saying because he was doing a drive around.
Oh,
and I-
could have been, because I don't think, yeah, I think there's been some changes. I don't have official names at this point.
I don't know if that's a regional manager, if that's the contractor's new manager, or what. I think it was MOTA. Anyway, he
it's
said,
MOTA.
you're right, he said he was going for a drive around, and I asked him to point out,
Yeah.
especially the bridge, so. But any avenues, I agree with Councilor Anthony, any avenues staff have to keep dropping. Anytime we talk to Mr. Braun or anybody else, and we should make that clear, because there is a potential for damage. We're waiting for it to fill with snow and ice now, so it gets
Yeah.
smooth again. Okay, thanks, everyone. We have one correspondence for action. This is requesting that council endorse a petition calling upon the federal government to support the exploration of legislative changes around the use of fireworks. Any comment on this? West,
Move to receive and file.
second. Councilor Noble, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'd support it. There's so much damage done every year from random fireworks. I'm all for community fireworks displays, which have a time, a location, you can secure your animals but there's so many people just blowing them off for weeks ahead and after, and animals die from this. I've witnessed it. There's a lot of harm done.
Okay, I've got a motion to receive on the table. So if anybody wants to, or if the majority would like to endorse the petition, then I guess don't support the motion, and we could put forward a motion to support the petition. Is there any more discussion before I call the question? Motion is to receive. Any opposed? Go ahead. Did you want to speak to it?
yeah, I think if we receive it, then there's no more discussion about it. Okay, well, I think we should have a discussion, so I guess I oppose it.
Okay. I will then oppose it too, so to carry on the conversation. So the motion to receive fails. I do agree that the fireworks get a little out of control for the days leading up to, and I enjoy fireworks in the community. I think it's fun. But the fact that it does go on for a full week, for hours at a time, is a little disruptive to animals. I don't know if this petition personally is the way to go, but I'm open to discussion from council. So it's signing it. I mean, the petition is fairly wide open. It's the exploration of legislative changes around the use of fireworks. So it leaves lots of room for conversation. Go ahead, Councilor Antonelli.
Well, I don't really see putting a project on the staff's work plan to address this more broadly. So maybe signing the petition that it be explored is a good way of joining the conversation without adding a lot of work.
Thanks. You'd like to make that motion?
Yes.
Seconder. Councilor Noble, any other discussion? I'll call the question. The motion is to support the exploration of legislative changes around the petition around the use of fireworks. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We only have one We have 3 for information, sorry. Would anybody like to pull any out? Again, just in terms of item number 3, we discussed it and I'm only bringing it up again to keep drawing attention to it. I know we're all aware of it, but anybody in the room, if there's anybody on the line, I spoke to the mayor of Squamish, they're going to be discussing as well. We've been struggling with this application for 3 years now, and costs keep going up and our childcare situation keeps getting worse. So I just like to be very vocal and transparent about it. So would anybody like to pull any of the 3 items of correspondence out? Not, motion to receive 1 to 3. Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any discussion? Opposed? Motion carries. Decision on late business. Late business, we have none. Notice of motion. And question period. Do we have any questions? So the regular council meeting is now open for questions from the public. Please be reminded that only questions directly related to items discussed during this meeting are permitted. If any members of the public attending via Zoom webinar wish to ask a question, please click on the raise hand feature in the webinar controls. This will notify staff that you'd like to ask a question, and staff will unmute your microphone when it's your turn to speak. And for those attending in person, Zanny, you'll be provided the opportunity for questions following those on Zoom. Anybody, Ms. Kennedy on Zoom that would like to ask a question?
No, Mayor Richmond, there are no questions from the Zoom attendees.
Thank you. Danny, you got anything for us?
I don't know if that was actually discussed, but the outhouse at the parking lot for the Mackenzie bikes thing. It's, I don't think it's it's more SLRE, or is it in your district? Because I just see like sometimes 50 cars there, and if you walk in the bushes, there's paper everywhere, and so. But those outhouses, they're quite expensive. But if we install it, and in a few years or in a year or 2 we want to move it and use it somewhere else, it's like the cost right now is 15 grand, because the unit itself is 6,000 plus the outhouse plus the insulation. But to move it from one place to the other would be maybe 2 or 3 grand. So it wouldn't be that much. And because it's composting, the liquid gets diverted. Whatever is left, it's like all the coffee filters with coffee. It's like it's very it decomposes very well, right? So just as a to bring that up, right? It's not something that has to stay. They are looking actually really good. If you've seen any, like at the hiking trails or the mosquito, they look very nice. And anyway, just that's just what I feel. It's like, if you walk in the bushes and the people bring their dogs, the dogs run through the bushes and they go home of their living room and kiss the dog. Like it's just there. I feel it's terrible. So having like 20 to 50 cars every week can park there. Right?
I think that's definitely a spot we could explore, and have staff. Cheers and Peppermint can contact our staff and talk about that, because then you're right, there's a heck of a lot of traffic over there. And as I mentioned out of Councillor Craddock's report, off the top of my head, I don't feel that we're going to need one near the soccer fields, because we have an amenities building coming in
exactly
in the future. So maybe if you do have an extra, maybe it's the Mackenzie parking area. I don't know, but I would recommend contacting our staff and working on that, because I totally hear your point.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I will look for a motion to recess the regular meeting on camera. Councillor Antonelli, opposed, motion carries. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll start into the cameras. Is that good for everybody?
Yep.